Hello and welcome to part 10 of the Mama You're Not Broken audiobook written and read by me, Anna Cusack. This chapter is all about boredom. You know it well, I know it well. It can be a really itchy and uncomfortable feeling, especially when everyone is banging on about this being the best time of your life, but also asking, so what do you actually do all day? Sometimes our new lives can feel boring. Sometimes the thing we used to be interested in before kids can feel boring. Like everything else related to being a mum, it is a mixed bag. I know you'll relate to this one, so enjoy. Before we start this chapter, I just want to remind you that you can order a physical copy of this book and also see a full reference list at www.annacusack.com.au/book. You can also head to www.annacusack.com.au to check out the ways we can work together. I offer mentoring via video call, voice messaging support for all things preparing for motherhood, motherhood itself, and parenting, and host a women's circle, writing workshop, or similar special event online each month. When lockdowns are done and dusted for good, I hope to take my work on the road, collaborating with some wonderful women and individuals along the east coast of Australia, so do watch this space. If you love my content here or on social media, I invite you to give back to this podcast by becoming a patron of the show for $5 a month. Again, head to www.annacusack.com.au/podcast to get involved. Let's get started. Chapter 9. Boredom. When I was pregnant, a work colleague presented me with a gorgeous hand-crocheted comforter she'd whipped up in a single evening after putting her 2 daughters to bed. It had the head of a sleeping teddy bear with perfectly symmetrical ears and different coloured threads creating its body. It was the sort of thing grandmas and handcraft lovers everywhere would go gaga over. How did you learn to do this? And how did you do it so quickly? I asked, equal parts awestruck and touched by the thoughtfulness of her gift. Well, my first baby just slept all the time. I was bored out of my brain. I had to find something to do or I felt like I'd go crazy. I got onto YouTube and learnt from scratch. I practiced and practiced. By the end of the month, I'd have enough toys and hats and blankets and things to have a stall at the local market. They'd sell out in a couple of hours. Then I'd start all over again the next day. She offered this answer like it was nothing at all, checking her emails as she spoke. As mentioned earlier, my experience with a low sleep needs baby was not like this, but I can still relate to her feelings of vitality-sucking boredom. There are only so many times you can sway singing Rockabye Baby before going slowly bonkers. When that stage passes, you will breathe a sigh of relief, only to realise there is only so long you can push a swing before you actually want to spontaneously combust. And as beautiful as it is, there is only so long you can stare at your baby's divine face before you start pining for some more stimulating conversation. Life with a newborn feels like you're on a 3 to 4 hour rotation, 24/7. For me, the cycle went something like this. Wake up, milk, change nappy, songs and books together on the floor, walking her around looking at stuff, another nappy, more milk, settling for eternity, nap. When it gets to the stage that eating, toileting, or unstacking the dishwasher become an exciting break from the normal routine, it's no wonder we can start to feel literally bored out of our brains. My friend's son arrived home from school one day to find his mum and I playing cards in their lounge room. "What are you doing?" he asked. I could have answered that I was breastfeeding the baby, or that he could see exactly what we were doing, but my brain didn't communicate with my mouth in time. "We're using Anna's brain in a different way, so she feels more like her smart self instead of just being a milk bar," my friend answered. He looked surprised for a moment, then nodded. "Fair," was all he said, and headed for the fridge. Is it fair, really? To feel bored while also being the busiest, most tired, most needed you've ever been? To feel bored while being told again and again, these are the best days of your life, or make the most of it, it's gone before you know it? It is easy to blame ourselves or our babies for putting us in this predicament, but the answer lies elsewhere. As discussed earlier, we aren't designed to be alone with our children in the first place. My guess is that it'd be a whole lot less boring if we were mothering in the company of others as the rule rather than the exception to it. Beyond that, though, the space of boredom is the space of being, and for the unaccustomed, it is an incredibly frustrating and uncomfortable place to be. Our male-dominated society praises productivity and achievement, and the desire to be ticking things off lists is drilled deeply into modern women. If you are bored, the implication is that you are slacking, not working hard enough, or not doing your job effectively. Caregiving, if you haven't noticed, doesn't work like this, but it has to be done by someone. It's mostly done by mothers, and as incredible as it is, it can also be monotonous and mind-numbingly boring. Most mornings for the last 2 months, my toddler has started the day by tapping at our back door, requesting her boots and telling me it's time to go to the creek down the hill from our house. On the way, we must check the letterbox for mail, stop and look for the 2 owls that sleep on a low branch during the day, and invite ourselves into our neighbour's front yard to kick their 8 half-deflated soccer balls into the goal. We stop approximately 17 zillion times to check for cars, wave at people or pets, and collect rocks to throw into the creek when our what feels like never-ending trek reaches its destination. If baby pace is slow, sometimes it feels like toddler pace is slower. I feel the frustration in me rising. I am out on these strolls in public before brushing my hair, and the dishes, laundry, and work emails all need doing. If only she would hurry up, I could... She finds a pothole to splash in, then reaches into it and collects a pebble and a larger stone. Paul, small for those not accustomed to toddler speak, she says, holding the pebble up to me, arm outstretched. I agree, it is small. Big, she says proudly, raising the larger stone to the sky. She is training me out of the mindset of doing to see what is happening around me, to notice that there are fewer clouds than yesterday, to appreciate the progress in her language and comprehension that to me is happening gradually and to others is advancing at lightning speed. I've come to the conclusion that the boredom of toddler pace is my version of what conscious parenting guru Dr. Shefali Sabri calls my spiritual boot camp. My daughter is very capably leading me through an immersive training program that, far from seeing me become a silent monk in a Himalayan cave, involves responding to her needs and gradually gleaning the lessons she has to teach me. I must say that some days the path of monkhood looks like the far easier option, and I am very jealous of the quiet cave that comes with it. Jealousy aside, tussling with toddler pace is my training ground. She's helping me to become the mindful mother I thought I would be, but haven't pulled off as easily as I'd hoped. Don't be fooled, however. While I know this on paper, I still find it incredibly difficult to make the same sequence of events fun and stay mindfully present when I am reading the same book about the same dog for the 15th time in a row. I still get bored, it's just that I feel less cranky about leaving the never-ending to-do list untouched. If the idea of swapping feeling bored senseless for some kind of epiphany about your awakening doesn't sit right with you, let me put it another way. Boredom is the place where the magic happens. When our mind is a blank canvas, we get to dream up the wild desires and grand plans for our life that can't bubble up when we're caught in the world of rational thought. Author Carly Marie talks openly about how her best ideas come when she is in the shower, driving, or lying with her kids before they fall asleep. These are the times, she says, where nothing else is coming in to get in the way of her creative genius. Indeed, Carly has written a bestseller and built a hugely successful business on the ideas that have come to her when she makes space to be bored. While you don't have to create a multi-million-dollar side hustle, she assures us that we will blow our own minds when we move past filling our boredom with busyness and instead grant ourselves permission to reflect on what is here now and dream up our next level life. Isn't it funny how most people agree that when kids are left to be bored, it encourages imaginative play? yet we struggle to apply this concept to ourselves who are now supposedly the wise grown-ups? If you want to get technical about it, there is solid neuroscience behind this concept. Specific circuits within our prefrontal cortex, the thinking parts of the brain, work together in unique ways when we daydream. Spontaneous thoughts are most likely to be generated when this default mode network of brain circuitry is active. Professor Eric Klinger from the University of Minnesota suggests that daydreaming gives mental space for better problem solving and provides an unintentional rehearsal mechanism to help prime us for what might happen next in our lives. I have met women who were so bored on bed rest during their pregnancies that they dreamed up and launched online courses, even live streaming their lessons from hospital, while nurses popped in and out of the room monitoring their blood pressure. I have met women who, having returned from maternity leave, found their previously enjoyed jobs so unfulfilling that they retrained or stepped outside the hierarchy altogether to inspire changes to the way their industries operate. I have met women who, while bored mothering alone, dreamed up and created nature-based playgroups and ended up forming some of the deepest friendships they have ever experienced. I have met women who have dreamt up no such thing, but on knowing their boredom was normal, rather than something to feel guilty about, were able to stop long enough to actually enjoy their day. We don't get any of that when we have our dreams and desires pushed down by the always busy version of motherhood. I realize that knowledge of the potential greatness boredom can bring doesn't help much when you're awake at 2 a.m. again, or lying with your preschooler for hours every night to help them fall asleep. Sometimes stimulus rather than straight up acceptance is what is required. You might want to shake up your routine or seek a change of scenery. You might want to hit up Pinterest for a lifetime's worth of play and craft ideas. You may want to go back to work earlier than you expected to. If that's right for you, go for it. You might want to come to an agreement with a friend to co-parent all your kids collectively each Friday and each have an hour on your own to do whatever the heck you want. If I feel like my brain cells are gathering more dust than great ideas, I know it's time to spice it up. For me, listening to podcasts, audiobooks, and online courses with an audio content option make a huge difference to my mental well-being. I can play them through a speaker while mothering, or pop them in my headphones when I go for a walk with the pram. These things have been invaluable in keeping me sane, but I am careful not to fill my head with too much information without leaving room for integration. Non-mothers can usually understand that child caring might sometimes get boring, but it is hard to explain why other parts of life can suddenly lose their appeal. After years of being an avid football fan, I found the first 2 football seasons after my daughter's birth didn't grab me at all. It was on in the background, but I couldn't tell you who was winning or give you any details about the game. Despite playing social netball for years before falling pregnant, I found the idea of playing sport rather than having the evening with my daughter boring. This was despite knowing we'd likely be at home alone after a day together, during which I had been bored. I feel ashamed to say it, but some conversations that I had with friends and family were at times boring too. My life was so vastly different to what it had been just months ago, and the topics I usually had strong opinions on were suddenly off my radar. News reports were either terrifying or tedious too, and I felt like I didn't have much to add to the conversation happening around me. My brain was doing what it needed to do, tuning me in to my baby and not much else, to ensure her best chance of survival. For me, the passion in some of these things is coming back, slowly, or being replaced by other areas of interest. While this can be a pretty common experience, I do want to present my experience with a word of caution. An inability to find joy and pleasure in things you usually enjoy can be a sign of depression, and it is always worth seeking professional support if boredom or apathy is casting a shadow over your life. I'm not going to lie, some days it's hard to find enthusiasm for an unpaid job that can be dull, that doesn't give us much positive immediate feedback or a report card on how we're doing. Giving myself permission to be bored when I want to and to seek stimulus when I want to has helped me cope immensely. Being a mum can be brilliant. It can also be very, very boring. Consider yourself warned that, more than likely, it'll be both. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. Please remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star review and share with anyone you feel may benefit from this content. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join me on social media at Anna Cusack Postpartum and head to my website www.annacusack.com.au to check out the ways we can work together. Please use the contact form on the website to inquire about having me run workshops with your client groups or book me for corporate speaking or professional development presentations. See you next episode.